I love to talk to you about today about digital in the industrial environment. And I'm sure many of you have listened to the speech of our CEO and chairman today, and I will be elaborating on some of the examples that he has given today. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of them, because when talking to customers, they say, I've understood the big picture, but sometimes I have difficulties diving deeper into my company, into my operations, to make digitization really happen. And that's what I would like to share with you today, because it does matter. It does matter for our customer, it does matter for their customers, and it also does matter for I think a larger population when we're talking about empowering to make the most of energy and resources. That's really what many of the industrial processes are about. If we look at the bill of material, so to say, if you wish, or the cost side of many of our customers, there is usually a huge bill of energy. There is also a huge bill of resources that go into a process and to produce whatever they want to produce. So how can we help them to reduce that bill of energy? How can we reduce them help them to reduce the bill of resources that are required to do the things they want to manufacture? So being more efficient, more effective by means of digitization. That's what I want to talk about very practically today. And I understand, and our people understand, that in many cases we're talking about infrastructure, plans, machinery, and so forth that is already in the field. 95% of what we see in the industry is installed base, and only 5% or 10% is somewhere in that range is newly installed equipment out there. But we want to help our people and our customers and their customers also to work on the facilities that are out there. So I start bringing an example out of our own facilities. This is a factory in northwestern part of Paris, more than 50 years old, where we manufacture contactors. 12 million pieces a year. So it's a high productivity facility. And if you were to go back 3 years, totally non-digitized. Automated, but totally non-digitized. And how can we go into a facility where people have been working for a very long time, not being exposed to digital, highly unionized, pretty much aged workforce, so the average age here in the facility is north of 45 years. How can we bring digital to them to help them become better at what they do? With that I mean more output, lower cost, higher safety, and less resources being deployed. And I'll come back to that example during my speech as well, and then also show what other customers are doing in that digital journey. Now, when talking with a couple of folks that do research out there in the market, they are telling us, that the challenges that are out there are pretty much the same for everybody, and we see this in our facility. We see a highly fluctuating demand going up and down, in particular at current times with geopolitical influences that affect our customers. Right? We see a lot of change in regulations. If you're in the food and beverage industries, I think in the last 2 years alone, you have seen more than 60 regulations being changed. And so how do you adapt to those in a very flexible manner as you go forward? Then there are also rapid advances in technology, a lot of buzzwords, and I've listed some of them here, where you're asked yourself, you ask your teams, well, are we losing something if we're not deploying those respectively to drive forward? Big data, analytics, AI, all those buzzwords, and I come to how they can really help you to remove some of those market uncertainties that are out there. Yet we understand, and this is LNS research that has done this study here, they say only 28% of industrial companies are considered being on a good way in respect to digitization. Well, of course, these 28% of the industrial companies, that's all you, because you've come here, right, to talk with us digitization. But there are another 72%, of the companies, and most of them have started to try with pilots and minimal viable products to move in the direction of digitization. I can tell you many of them are stuck. Of course, 13% they're deeply stuck. I would imagine none of those 13% are here in the room with us today because you choose to come and talk with us. But I'm sure everybody who has walked down this journey, they have had their frustrations in deploying some of the technology and not seeing the value it can create for the own company or for the customer. That's why I'm trying to come up with I don't want to say an easy recipe, but a recipe that has worked with many of our customers in driving digitization forward in the industrial space. And it's based on 4 simple pillars. And I'm going to be talking on those 4 simple pillars with what we have done with our customers. It's about easy to get started with, because many times you have huge concepts and you're not passing the moment of PowerPoint, if you wish. And in the implementation, it says, no, this is too expensive, we don't know what it's going to bring for us, and so forth. So I believe it's got to be easy to get started. It's the first point I'm going to go deeper with. But then we're also talking about bringing IT and OT together. That's also talked about very heavily in the market. What does it mean? What kind of consequences does it have? Then how can industrial software help us to accomplish this digital journey? And then I believe no one company in the world can solve all problems for our customers, so it requires an ecosystem and an open architecture to do that. But let's dive into those with concrete examples. If I say easy to get started with a cost-effective way and the scaling. You know, I go back to our factory in Le Vaudreuil in Paris. As I said, 50 years old, 12 million breakers we're manufacturing there per year. And I just picked one machinery by accident. This is the bottleneck machinery that we have in the plant. They wind the coils that go into the circuit, into the contactors. Now you can imagine if you have 12 million contactors, you need to make sure that those coils are available. The copper wire that is in the coils is extremely thin. So small variations of temperature in this machine will cause this wire to be cut. And then you need to have manual interaction to be able to work on this workplace again and start the next coil. So what we've found out through experience of the users, that we can improve the productivity of this machinery if we're measuring the temperature in every single winder, which we have done with these simple sensors that you can buy for a couple euros from Schneider by accident. And we're measuring the temperature. We bring this temperature of every single individual coil up through an IoT box that you see up there into our local cloud. And now the operator can not only see on one of the screens how is the temperature per coil winder changing, but he can also start operating with his own feeling how to make this better. But we know, of course, own feeling may not be the best way to operate, in particular in the night shift, if he wants to have a little bit of a longer break. So that's where we start then to deploy some analytics and some machine learning to make the operation of this machine simpler. Now the investment that we need to take is, you take a couple of those sensors, you're below 100, couple hundred euros. You have an IoT box, a couple hundred euros, and then you deploy a software, a little bit more than a couple hundred euros, but you use the software not only for one machine, but for many, many machines that you have in this factory. And then you start improving the productivity of this machine that has never heard anything of IoT before, that hasn't heard anything of big data, that hasn't heard anything of artificial intelligence. But we've done it with a couple of hundred units on this specific machine. And then you start your way forward in several machines in that factory. Then you work on augmented reality tools that help the service engineer in case something goes wrong, that he can reduce the mean time to repair on this machine. Again, probably the iPad is the most expensive here of the solution. A couple hundred euro for the software, and that goes by subscription, depending on how much you use, how much you're paying. And with that, you can see how you drive up efficiency. For this machine, we drove up the overall equipment efficiency by 7% for this machine only. And I tell you, it's one of the key machineries in there. But we've found that it varies somewhere between 5 to 15%, depending on the application that we run in our own factories for that machinery. Now, the implementation of that technology has taken 3 to 4 weeks, and they didn't need rocket scientists to do that, but we trained our own people in the factory to be able to do that. Because if you want to deploy this throughout one factory or several factories, you need to make sure that you also have the people on board. I said, this was a unionized factory, right? So you drive this forward with the people locally, they gain the experience, and then all of a sudden, you increase the output quite drastically. Now, we've done the same on the energy consumption side and looked at the total factor, what kind of energy are we consuming and so forth. So in this site in France, this was a 15% reduction in energy consumption. Same way of doing it. Sensors, measuring, analyzing, and improving the situation. We found that in some of our later factories in China or in Asia Pacific, we were able to reduce the energy consumption by more than 20%, and that's really surprising. If you go into much of the younger sites, you still have the same potential to improve that. So now, this is meanwhile installed in roughly 80 of our factories. So we're driving this forward because it creates value for us. And but the same is true, of course, in other factories. Now, if we look at another company, this is Berto, a coffee roaster. Probably anybody knows Berto here? No, it's an Indonesian company established in 1984. They started in the food and beverage environment, consumer packaged good, furnished machinery for quite a few of the large food manufacturers globally. And then in just a couple of years back in the late in the 2015, I think, if I recall correctly, they decided they should be in the coffee roasting machinery business, because they say this is a growing market. I don't know who drinks coffee here on a regular basis. Oh, okay. Yeah, the others are too tired to bring up their arm. Almost everybody drinks coffee. It's really a market that is also growing with population. So for them it was very important that first of all they automate the machine. And we do this with our connected products, and we do this with our PLC controls and SCADA system. So we've done this with many of our customers in the past as well. That's the normal automation thing. But one of the things that is specific for Berto is that they are renting their machines. Now, if you are a machine builder and you rent your machine to somebody, you want to make sure that this machine runs at its best at the customer, because that's what you paid for, right? If you move to kind of a machine as a service. So you want to make sure that this machine runs at its best. So if the machine needs to run at its best, you need to connect this machine. You need to connect all your machines, because you want to have a fleet management of the machines that you have rented out to make sure that they are run in the most efficient way. You can learn from one machine to the other machine and change some of the manufacturing data. You want to know where you have a breakdown, so you can reduce the mean time to repair. And that's what we have introduced with this third layer, the apps, analytics, and services that we have built, and it's called Machine Advisor, for example, or Augmented Operator Advisor, to augment the capabilities of the user out there. But the machine needs to be connected to the cloud. And of course, we know that for many that's a no-go, while it is a safe place to be, in my opinion. And I comment on this a little bit later. So the reduction of maintenance time was extremely critical to the customer, and with that, of course, you have increased production time, and you can read what the customer says here by yourself. And of course, we have no slides where the customer says something bad about us, but so much. So I think examples to really get to start easy. I think that's very important, because you need to have a success right at the beginning when you move forward with limited investment. That's what I wanted to show here in this area. Now, once you have done that, of course, you want to build on that, and you will find out that once you connect some of your machinery or some of your plants, all of a sudden, a network that has been totally separated in the past, or there was no engineering software that was connected, or there was no ERP system that was connected all the way to the shop floor. Once you do that, you talk about the IT space and the OT space coming together. And that's a convergence that, in our opinion, will need domain expertise to drive this forward. Domain expertise means we need to have somebody who understands the process in the factory. That's many times always with the customer, but also paired with our experts who know your processes, and that's very critical. We also need to have expertise on the automation side, and we need to have the expertise on the software side. So all of a sudden you have more people sitting around the table, but you want to make sure that you're not engaging into exercises where people that are good at software development have never touched the ground of a shop floor. Where you have huge investments, capital investments that do production. So we believe this is very important to bring this together, and I'll show you some examples where we are doing this with customer. So anybody here in the audience out of the water, wastewater industry, municipal maybe? No, nobody. So I can tell you anything here now. No, I don't. Padania Acque is a geography or a water wastewater company in Italy, close to Milan. They have a pretty large area to cover. And when I met with them, one of the things they are totally concerned about is two things. How can they quickly make sure that they give the right billing information to their customer without human intervention? That's something for their productivity. The second thing they're worried about is that the mayor is not calling them. The mayor will call them if somebody has no water, if there's a problem with the water, if there's a problem with the wastewater, if the two would be accidentally combined somewhere. That's what he's worried about. So he's worried about that he knows as quickly as possible and that they can take action as quickly as possible. If we start off there, that's how can we connect this very remote network that they have, many of which is manual and many of which is very, very old technology. And many times they send out service engineers on site. They're in the car for 2 hours. They get there to find out that they don't have the right information and they need to drive 2 hours back without doing anything. How can we help them by digitizing to reduce that amount of time, right? The second thing is, once we bring up all this data here through the different levels, we want to make sure that we have a suite of software products that will help them to optimize their end-to-end process, be it in respect to asset performance management, be it in respect to sending invoices to the customer, connection to the ERP system that they have running, and so forth. How do they manage their workforce? Can they digitally enable their workforce? So if the service engineer drives on site, can he get real-time data on the site where he's going to go? And that's what we have accomplished by offering a complete solution. You go to this company, and you'll find that they have built a completely new control and operations center, where they have total visibility, not to a total site, but to large parts of the installed base that they have. And with the Aviva suite of products in the wastewater space, we've totally connected them all the way down to things that have been disconnected. Now, of course, many times they talk about technical losses. I see some friends here from South America. Technical losses will mean somebody tries to get the water for free, so it's stolen. I've heard you also have this in Italy sometimes. The more data that you have, the quicker you know whether in between a certain points you have a technical losses or leakage. And then, of course, energy consumption was another topic that I haven't talked about. But I think you're getting the picture that IT and OT here are coming together quite dramatically. And with that, of course, cybersecurity becomes an issue. But I'll talk about this later on. Another example from a totally different industry is a machine builder that we have in China, Beijing Hanjiang Automatic Glass. They manufacture a glass. It's a pretty large machinery. It's 48 meters long. So I was talking to somebody yesterday. I said, well, how much is 48 meters? I said, it's clear, it's 150 feet. So, but how much is that? So it's from here all the way to the other side. That's the size of one machine that they have. So this is quite a complicated piece of equipment that, number one, needs to be automated, which is what we've done in the past. But in order to fully optimize the process that they have, they said we'd like to have this machinery connected directly to our ERP system, so we're able to directly get orders that we come in. We're scheduling them in a way that the machine runs in the most effective way to serve our customer. And having two clear advantages. One being the closer you have an end-to-end process fully digitized, that means usually your delivery time goes down. That's a clear advantage. If the delivery time goes down, usually your inventory levels also go down. It's quite important there as well. And with that, of course, that all comes through inefficiencies that have been done. So a variety of examples where all of a sudden you bring the shop floor connected to the IT side, and that of course requires new capabilities that we're offering. Now, after once you start connecting the IT and the OT space, you wonder how engineering software can help me, and that's something that we have built over the years. All of you, meanwhile, know that Aviva is our software company that Schneider Electric owns still by 60%. Still, many people ask us, why have you set it up in the way you've set it up? And I'd like to comment on this in a couple of sentences, because I think it's important when engaging, and all of a sudden somebody comes with a different business card. Despite all the financial benefits that we have out of that, which was important and is important to our owners, so that was clear. Secondly, if you want to have the best of the best software in the market, you need to bring the best of the best software talents together, right? I think it almost sounds like a no-brainer. If you want to ask software developers where they like to work with software developers. So we've said, why not putting a company together where we only have software people and have them drive this forward? At the same time, we found, when looking at others, the big advantage is if you have software people and an industrial partner together. And that's what we've tried to set up. We have a specific software company that is owned by us, controlled by us if you wish, and you have the industrial partner, but which by accident is the owner. Now, This has helped us drive architectures forward that we haven't thought about before. So Aviva is totally embedded in our EcoStruxure architecture. Is totally embedded in the solutions we can offer to the customer. And there are of course many different delivery models that we have worked on to be able to fulfill the respective needs. And I come to those later on when I talk about the ecosystem. Now, and you've seen Aviva in my examples earlier, but let me try to move into 2 examples where this has been totally game-changing for some of our customers. And you've heard Jean-Pascal talking about Wilmar Sugar before. It's the largest sugar manufacturer in Australia. They produce 2.5 million tons of sugar per year, have 8 large mills in the country. So this is not a small company. It's large, and when we talk about a site that is 50 years old, they start laughing at us. So one of their sites is 98 years old, that they needed to revamp and bring to what's out there in respect to technology. Of course, one of the things they have been worrying about is if we deploy the new technology, how can we do this in the quickest fashion? Because there is going to be a loss of production if we revamp. So we want to make sure that that's done. And if we move to the latest technology, can we increase the productivity? Can we decrease the amount of energy that we're using? They are a self-producer of energy, all biomass. If you go in the production of sugar refinery and sugar mills, you know that there is a lot of waste, which they are using to in a biomass power plant to generate the power for themselves. And by the way, they're also feeding into the grid enough to deliver electricity for 80,000 people in their community or in Australia. So it's fairly large. So what we would have done traditionally is, of course, all the PLCs and IoT boxes and power systems and so forth. That was the traditional way of going forward. Now, I said with Aviva, we started to transform that process because we started implementing the DynSim, which is a dynamic simulation of the plant. Meaning, when you do the engineering, and before you actually go on the site and do the changeover, you can dynamically simulate with what you have engineered and done, what is this going to do to your output. So what that does to you is once you go on site, you're pretty sure that you minimize the on-site change work that we all know very well, where you go through your design and figure out what you need to change because you have made a mistake. You couldn't dynamically simulate the plant. And those are the capabilities that we've done. So they have reduced the commissioning time by 20%. Now that's significant because you're 20% earlier in production again. 20% earlier in production means 20% more output, for at least for that period of time. Means pure cash and money for the customer in commissioning and in startup time. And one of the things that we haven't even thought about when this project started is when you do all this dynamic simulation, by accident in the end you also increase safety. Because less site work you have, more you simulate before, increases the safety, which is extremely important to those plans. And the target was to go to zero lost time for crushes that they do, which had been achieved as well. So quite changing what we had done traditionally with incremental offers that haven't been there before and combined. Now, and also this example you've seen earlier, but we'll go one level deeper. Petronas, one of the large oil and gas companies, where we have, and Jean-Pascal talked about how we bring power and automation together in order to reduce the bill of electricity at those companies. I want to talk more of the upper part, in how we are optimizing the process at the customer. And the process can well be that if there is a certain quality of crude oil available in the market, you need to be able to decide very quickly whether that's oil that fits to your refinery and can be processed there very well to give you the highest yield that you can achieve. Now, the competition that we have in this field is called Microsoft Excel. Many of our customers do the simulation by themselves in models that they have built by themselves with a core competence that's in there. Now we've come up with Aviva with a crude planning, real-time modeling and optimization software where we allow to kind of simulate the complete value chain, and people can on the spot decide much quicker if they go and buy a certain crude quality at a certain price, what it will mean to their bottom line. And that's totally changing the way they are operating. Now, if you imagine that you can get real-time data into such a simulation, then you can see how beneficial this is for the customer, and you see some of the advantages here as well. So these solutions are getting, of course, I would agree, more complex. The world is becoming more complex, and by no means we have all the answers. Or we have all the products, or we have all the technology to solve it. And there is a huge community of technology partners, implementation partners out there, what we call an ecosystem that helps us to resolve problems that our customers have. From our opinion, there are two things that are really important in that. Number one is that your architecture is open in a way that others can come in, can easily connect, and find a good partnership. A second, a very important thing that we have found out over time is the more transparent you can make this ecosystem of partners, the easier it is to find somebody who can really solve the problem that may be missing at that point in time. And for those of you who have been at the Hanover Fair, that's where we officially launched our exchange platform. It's a platform where we're trying to bring partners together, be it system integrators, be it software developers, be it technology partners, and our customers, so they can start exchanging challenges and information and to find the best solution for what they have to solve. Now I'm bringing 4 examples to show you how that may work, and I start off here on the left side with a little bit more a traditional one, and then move to the more sophisticated one on the left-hand side. While they all sound very simple, and I think they are simple. So we have with bit control one of our master alliance system integrators that have just worked with us and the end user. So basically 3 parties together, technology provider plus system integrator plus end user, to work on a water pipeline project executed. 3 partners, fairly simple, straightforward. Now, if we come to what we call industrial automation distributors, also a large network of distributors that have automation capability, they were together with Cougar Automation, and then serving the end customer, which is the UK rail network, and they make sure that waste is not piling up in the trains. So I don't want to go into more detail. It's going to get nasty otherwise. However, now you have 4 partners who are already working together: a technology partner, a distributor, an OEM, and the end user to make that work. So you see here you have already a more complicated network of partners that we're trying to facilitate, that we're facilitating is one of our core capabilities to do that. And if we're adding more complexity to it, I'll bring a technology provider, Win 911. So this is not you cannot win a Porsche 911 here. So Win 911 is one of the technology provider providing an alarm platform which is considered in certain industries the best of the best. And we said, okay, no need to use our alarm management platform. If that's what the customer wants, then we'll work together. So we'll bring the technical partner together, plus the end customer, plus ourselves, plus an OEM, which is GEA in this case, is one of the large food and beverage machinery manufacturers out of Europe, and to work together with our system integrator and the end customer. So already 5 partners coming together. Now you wonder, how does one partner or one customer understand what's available in the market? And that's where we brought Exchange to life, because we wanted to have our partners and technology people really work together and find themselves, as opposed to one being the facilitator and trying to know what's out there, because nobody knows. And we've, interestingly enough, we've had two companies that are not too far from each other, that also knew each other from former events that we've had together. They've found themselves on Exchange to where one would probably use a library that the other had built, and maybe in the past they would consider themselves competitors, and now they're cooperating and not reinventing the wheel again. And you can read for yourself what they've written down here. So this ecosystem becomes more and more important if you deploy software, if you have technology partners, if you want to have a capable system integrator that is close by, if you want to have secured delivery, and so forth. And that's something that we're fostering to drive forward. Now, while doing all of that, of course, I understand very well and that cybersecurity is a big concern of many of our customers. And cybersecurity in the OT environment. Why do I say in the OT environment? Before I was saying IT and OT are converging. Absolutely. And what I'm talking about here is the last mile. If you talk to some of the cyber experts that come out of the traditional IT space, they say, oh, if this goes into the shop floor, or I don't know, that's where we come in. We are experts in the last mile, but we also go into up into the IT space. To give you a couple of examples, when you go into a plant and you have a variety of different control systems of different suppliers installed there, or other devices that are connected. Many of those you will find still have the original equipment manufacturer's password in there, hard-coded sometimes. You can Google in the darknet what's the password, you find it out, you're into the plant. Right, so you send an IT person there, says, okay, we need to upgrade Windows. He upgrades Windows, and guess what happens next? The plant will stop. It's not going to run anymore because he didn't know what effect this will have on manufacturing. And those expertise we have combined in a team that's meanwhile spanning 38 nations in the world to address those issues at our customers. In a 5-step approach, we go to the customer, we do the assessment on what's out there. It's a little bit of a consulting approach, and we go and look and see, and then we come up with a design that helps them to become more cyber secure. Design means not only technology, but it also means people, and it also means processes, because it's a combination of those three. And that's a design proposal that we make in many cases, of course, but not in all cases. Many times they go out and do a competitive bid. We also do the implementation. That means we're taking what we have consulted on, we deploy it at the site, and then. But cybersecurity is not a project; it's a journey, and many of our customers, of course, realize that very well. From that perspective, they and we engage into monitoring what's going on in the OT environment to see anomalies that are going on in the network. And for that, it requires special capabilities to understand what's happening in this OT environment. And then, of course, it becomes a continuous process of being as secure as possible. And the I've been trying for 3 years, since we do this more aggressively, to find a customer who's ready to put his name on one of the examples. But if you're talking about cybersecurity, nobody's ready to say, here, I'm going to put my name out here, because then all of a sudden they become the target, right? Everybody wants to prove that the solution is not good as promised. So, but it shows you a couple of steps that we have taken, and in this example, this was only to 25 or 30% on our installed base. We know that the installed base is vast. We know that there are others out there, but our people also know what's available from the others. So if we have a site with a heterogeneous automation environment or OT environment, our experts will go in and be able to do that. So, to sum it up, four pillars to be successful in the digital journey, to really think about how easy it can be to get started in the machine or in the facility. Really important. Secondly, how can we bring domain expertise into the OT and IT conversion to develop solutions that serve the customer's pain points. And then, of course, integrated end-to-end software that's going to help us, of course, with cybersecurity, and of course with the network of partners that comes with it. And then, last but not least, also in many sites where we are really electro-intensive, think about bringing process and power closer together, because it will reduce your bill on electricity and your bill on resources as you drive forward. So I think if we're following this path, our 28% of successful companies in this space, we should be able to bring it up to 72 or higher. But whom do I tell that? I mean, you all come to the right place. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon.